I walked my dad through over a few months the carpentry journey, recognizing experience, gap training, the knowledge side, the performance side, that on its own. And now my old man he sold one of his tobacconists and he works probably 4 or 5 days a week doing what he loves. That's my biggest probably success story. We get guys that have split up $150,000 to $200,000 invoice close to 50 times to stay under the threshold, and that just rotates constantly. There are 220,000 about to be cancelled by a big mob in Melbourne, which hasn't hit the news. It's industry talk now that we're understanding. There's another 60,000 from another RTO that's in Sydney, and since then there's been about 47,000 qualifications cancelled to date already. The RPL industry has lost about 85% of its cowboys. You don't want the wrong person asking for it. If you don't have it and you're sitting there with your pants down on a site and you're looking back and thinking, holy fuck, how do I cover this one up? You don't, because I can assure you, anybody holding their license is not going to fucking throw theirs under the bus to save yours because you were a contractor unlicensed on any site that they were working next to. At the end of the day, you need to be wanting to engage in doing better for yourself. If you're not interested in that, you can only be helped so much. If you want to run the gauntlet, run the fucking gauntlet. God knows that there's another 150,000 guys behind you that are going to run the gauntlet for the day that they put the last tool.
Welcome back to the Build Better podcast, the show about building better and backing higher standards in Australian construction. Today I'm joined with Adam Zahr. Adam, welcome.
Morning, mate.
So if you can, this podcast is about RPL, trade certification. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Alrighty. Well, firstly, Chris, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on board. I think this is a really important topic because most people, especially the really credible trades or the ones that have social proof and they've been doing it for 20, 30 odd years, the ones that the construction, the integrity of the construction industry was kind of built on their backbone. This is a sticking point for them because they feel like the old school mentality and the old school methods to the madness is exactly how it should be operated through apprenticeships and traineeships and whatnot, which I don't disagree with. But unfortunately, we've still got that major period where a lot of the trades that dropped out of their apprenticeships, dropped out of TAFE, dropped out of the pathways that weren't flexible for them to be able to build a better life for themselves, for their families, for their children and whatnot, has meant that there is a massive gap of individuals that have never got the qualifications at all. Hence why recognition of prior learning came in. So we don't only operate within the RPL space. We do deal with individuals that need to come in and they've never seen anything to do with the building industry at all. They need to go from start to finish when they enroll into qualifications that can get them the industry understanding of what the trade is that they want to walk into, whether it be a level 3, level 4, level 5 qualification for themselves or a trade. But RPL is an incredible tool for the guys that have the ability to document their experience on site, right? And what they've done in their life and the experiences that they've had across all different aspects of building or any trade or any industry for that matter. So Trade Certified was born on the back of having a ton of individuals that wanted to be able to support their families and their livelihoods by getting a trade and not going back into traditional classroom environments where they need to be able to learn back to front what they already know, and they could just essentially either fill the gaps that they didn't have the competency on, and then provide experience for what they already knew. And they knew that was going to be a much more accelerated process that was compliant enough for them to be able to stay on the tools, do what they do best, just document it to prove they have the understanding, and then organise for either a trainer or an assessor to support them with any areas that there might be a little bit of incompetency with, or something that they might not have touched for a number of years, and then the rest serves itself when they can get RPL for the experience that they already have, get the contractor license that they need, and then go on and take on the jobs. And essentially, stop splitting up invoices, stop renting a mate's license, stop trying to undercut what's required on the job because you're under the threshold, the legal threshold of what you should be doing, and give yourself an opportunity to build the credibility that's required for you to have the company and have the future that you want in the space.
So how long have you been in the trade space now?
God, good question. 2020 was the unofficial start point, right? So going on 6 years now. From my balcony, I had a really good friend that actually showed me the ropes, him and his old man. And the I built a lot of experience through them. And understanding like the niche that I wanted to be able to focus on was specifically the trade. Knowing where the country is going and what is required for Australia to be in a position that it can actually satisfy the capacity required over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and so on. You knew that this was going to be, obviously, number one, we're in the education industry, right? An incredibly high demand, high sought after space for any business within the country. And then you pair that with the construction industry, essentially the second, third biggest in the country. I knew that was the sweet spot that I wanted to be able to sit in. It doesn't mean that there aren't competitors, but this industry is full of dinosaurs, right? Like, so for the last 6 years or so, I've just wanted to hone in on that, because you can become, an educator across all different scope, but then you're going to have to become, a mini expert across all those different niches. And I don't necessarily I want to be great at one area, because a qualification means, excuse the French, but it means piss all. A license is what covers you.
Yes.
And most blokes have no understanding of whether or not they even need a qualification or need the license. And they think if they sit under that threshold of $5,000 in New South Wales or $3,000 in Queensland or what have you across different states with the QBCC or VBA or fair trading, that they can get away with it. The problem is you've already set a ceiling. So you're knowing that you're going to go in there, you're going to be the guy that's going to take on those jobs that the qualified contractor doesn't want to take on because it's going to cost him more to do the job than it is for you to be able to set aside a couple of months, really go and build out the infrastructure needed for you to be able to get your portfolio under, up to speed. The units that you might need a bit of gap training on, successfully, applied or trained on or do a workshop for or what have you. And put all your ducks in a row so that you can go on and take on the license that you need. So I feel like a lot of the individuals that are stuck in that period where they haven't got it are so time poor, but it's because they're on the tools so heavily doing all the jobs that nobody wants to fucking be able to touch, and or it's costing them an arm and a leg to leverage, and none of them can say that they're not, because I know that they are. All of our clients, the majority of them have rented a license from someone. They try and do a job for somebody else that 50% of their margin goes just by the sake of somebody saying, yeah, mate, here's my license, let me take care of it. They stay under the quota for what it's required. It could be a $5,000 job, or it could be a $10,000 job, and they quote $5,000 because they just know they don't want to be sitting in that threshold of getting caught.
Or negotiate paying cash and off the books.
Exactly.
Something dodgy.
And that's not how you run a company.
No.
How do you scale the hustling mentality? You don't.
Yes.
Right. Eventually it catches you somewhere. Right. So the ability for you to be able to do it the right way and know that RPL is not a shortcut. That is the biggest problem people think. They think RPL is your shortcut. In most instances, right, RPL can be, you could spend more time doing or providing evidence towards that unit, right, than it would for you to just do the course or do that unit online, right, in some instances.
Yep.
Whereas the reason why RPL is so fruitful is because, let's say, for example, you are pitching a roof and you set up a tripod like this. You set it up and you go about your work and you document the stages and the steps, planning and preparing all the way through to cleanup stage, which is in the basics of the elements of performance criteria. And you document that process through to the end of that particular unit and what is required for you to be deemed competent in that space. And you have had to do nothing else. You haven't had to go into a classroom. You haven't had to sit in a workshop. You haven't had to go to any kind of masterclass of such. You are doing what you do best, and you are just demonstrating your competency of it, right? Simple as that. You send that back to the assessor. They tick it off. It's done. In some instances, you might have to wait for a certain unit to come up handy in a job that you're doing. If, for example, you're not pouring a slab at the moment, and something is specific around setting out or whatnot. Setting out, go to a park. Mm-hmm. Do a tube-op test. You tube-op test. You set out in a park. You set out in an environment that simulates what is required from that particular unit or that particular task, and you're able to achieve it. Some qualifications, we do a bit of a self-assessment on every single student, and we look at every possible scenario for that individual to either do RPL or do gap training, through an online LMS, log in at their own time that's flexible to them, and they have a self-paced process for what is required. And now from a knowledge perspective, in RPL, you've got performative, which is like your ability to show you can do it, right? Essentially the what You know, what is a task and what is it that you're doing around that particular unit? The second is the knowledge basis, the why. Why are you doing that task? Why are you doing it in this order? Why are you using those materials? Why have you picked up that tool? All of the elements around exactly what is required for you to be able to be deemed competent, there is a formula to it. Most people they send over 10 to 15 photos to a middleman broker, right? And expect that the broker then hands off to the RTO and the RTO hands you a piece of paper. There are 500,000 qualifications being cancelled from last year and this year alone. Some of the big giants that I know, there's trainers and assessors have qualifications from them. There are probably 200,000 plus contractors in this country holding qualifications. We even got caught up at Trade Certify. The problem is you don't know which individual RTO is going to be compliant and which one isn't, right? So being able to understand what the new standards are with ASQA as of 2025, July 1, and then implementing those into our RTO. We are an RTO ourselves, right? We know how to work within the scope that we have and what the requirements look like, because in the start, that's not what we understood. In the start, RPO wasn't like that. There were so many cowboys left, right, and center. You didn't know what to trust, but you went with whatever it was because there was cowboys, brokers, middlemen. It was a fucking shit fight, right? And seeing what it is now and knowing that 80% of our entire competitor base has now left because ASQA's come in, they've cancelled RTOs. Not only have they cancelled RTOs, anyone associated to the RTOs in a registration period of, say, a 2-year enrollment is getting their qualifications cancelled, right? You imagine that. 2023, you enroll, let's say. 2 years go on, you've just received a notice of intent to cancel. You're a contract, you know nothing about you haven't done anything wrong, right? You've just given what the middleman was, which in our instance, that was us as well. Prior to being an RTO, we listened to it, everything that the RTO said. This is what we need. This is the kind of documents that we want to be able to see. These are the photos and videos. Nothing mapped back to a unit. No understanding of LLNs. No element of performance criteria being mapped away. Nothing, right? RTO would say one thing. We'd relay that back to a student and the student would just provide the evidence, right? Now, God, I was naive. Being able to sit there and comfortably know what is required from the back end from an RTO and then going in and making such a significant investment into that space has allowed me to humbly sit back with a peace of mind that I need and know that I was so naive in the beginning, because that's not how you build the integrity of the construction industry. And the blessing in disguise is that I'm so thankful that this is happening now, because what we're doing, and I think you've seen some of the, like from an AI perspective, what we want to be able to do in the future. That is where I want to be able to focus attention on, because RPO is not going to go away, nor should it, because it is a hugely valuable tool.
Well, it helps people get qualified that have been doing a job for so long.
We had a guy last year, 25 years he'd been on the tools. The last RTO that he engaged with, you know what they said to him? Oh, mate, look, at your age, it might just be worth, either getting like a training and assessment and getting off the tools. And he called us, he goes, oh, look, just don't tell me I'm too old to get it done. I was like, mate, like, that's never going to be the case. Why would you say that? Oh, I was just speaking with so-and-so. They said, better I get off the tools and I maybe do a bit of training from the back end. Like, you're talking about someone that is so ideal for RPL, and the advice or insight that he got was to step away from the tools. That's his bread and butter, what he loves. He'll be doing roofing for the next, I reckon, 20 years.
So in the commercial, talking about it's not a shortcut in the RPL.
Yeah.
Explain to me what's involved in becoming an RTO, so that people can understand that if you do go out and you get a RPL, that you're not cutting a corner. Because myself, I went and got my glazing trade through an RPL. Yeah. A lot of people might not know. I didn't get it through an apprenticeship. Even my own father, after I had got mine, he went and got his as well, because we were under he was under the misguided conception that we're in the commercial space. Yeah. We don't need a trade certificate. Yeah. Because we can do our work. We can literally change.
It's a grey area.
we can change the windows in the opera house. But if I go to your house and replace a bathroom window, I'm in a big trouble. Yeah. So explain to me what's involved in becoming an RTO.
Well, there's two parts. So let's say, and shout out to Gimbal as well, Gimbal Training, because they're a huge leader in the glazing space.
Yeah.
So anybody, I know that you've got a ton of fans, especially that watch how you do, your techniques, all of your insights, all of your technology that you have, which a lot of people, when we've been together, they've reached out and said, oh, Chris, I love the way he does what he does in the glazing space. And so what you do, I think it's worth mentioning for the individuals that helped you get qualified.
Of course.
They are industry leaders as well in that space. So there should be a lot of credit with how they're operating, because it's not easy, especially within the glazing world, right? And they've been around for years. Two parts to that, right? How you go about RPL the right way, because there is two ways, like every industry, no matter what we're in. And then there's the RTO, right? So let's say, for example, you want to be an RTO, and it was funny. I was having a conversation with a company called Carpentry Australia. Well, I say Carpentry. They're one of the leading memberships for carpenters in the country. And they are, there's some synergy building. I won't get into the details because it hasn't been formally arranged as of yet. But when I have the conversation with people, I want as many RTOs in the space as possible that share the same kind of concept to improve the structural integrity of the Australian construction industry. And I use that line because it's our mission statement, right? Helping 50,000 Australian men and women in the construction industry essentially increase the structural integrity of this space, because it is, in certain pockets, a shambles, right? And I'm sure you've seen some horror stories of had to fix up horror stories, right? And there's two ways to be an RTO. Number one, you register it, right? And you go through the process, all the resources, all the consulting, all the compliance understanding, and a bit of homework with what it looks like. You go in through the process with ASQA. You go and register the interest of what scope you want to be able to offer. If it was glazing, for example, you'd say, this is the certificate that I want to be able to offer. Here's the trainer and assessors. Here are all our policies and procedures, our resources, plus 50 other things, right? That's one option. Second option, which is what I prefer, is, and you would do this if time wasn't a barrier, right? Oh, sorry, if money wasn't a barrier and timing was, you go and acquire one, right? You'd go and acquire, say, a shell RTO or an RTO that's had very minimal enrollment since passing audit, for example, and everything checks out and they've got the resources and the scope that you want on scope, and you go and buy that, right? And the turnaround time might be 4 to 6 weeks, get all your ducks in a row, and then bang, you're a registered training organization. There might be a couple of, desktop audits or what have you might come. You can never really tell with the Australian Skills and Quality Authority what might happen, but you need to be in a position to know that if you're wanting to get stuck into the RTO space, the knowledge around it is critical, right? It's not a mum and pop's, store that you go and acquire and you start trading from day one. There are so many areas that you need to focus on that can essentially have, or you could watch all the chips fall really quickly, right? If
it's not done properly.
If it's not done properly. And you're seeing that now, right? And where I find a lot of those RTOs go down is associated to the recognition of prior learning, that aspect. Because if done well, it can be a profitable machine. Right. And I sit with guys that want to be able to have agreements with us or partnerships. And I often say to them, mate, you've got a bucket load of capital that's sitting there. Let me show you how to buy an RTO. Forget, this is great. I'd love to do a partnership with you. But let me add more value and show you how to buy one. Because if you buy one, I'll show you the org chart that's required, what you need to be able to establish. Come to me and I'll just show you everything that you need. Agenda free. I want more people doing what is required to be able to either bolt on to their, let's say they have a tier 1 company, right? Or a Fortune 500, or they've got 100 plus staff members and training is a big part of their day to day. I'd love to be able to show them what it takes to be able to operate and have their own RTO. I think it's a fucking great space to be, right? Done right. The RPL side, right, also needs to be understood that it is a blessing. The tool and the framework is awesome when it is accurately done within the moral and ethical framework of the RTO and of ASQA's requirements and the standards. If I was an RPL student right now, and let's say, for example,
Sorry to stop you for a sec. Explain RPL.
Done. I'm an RPL student. I've just come to you and I've said, Chris, I've been on the tools for 10 years. I'm a chippy through and through. Never got my ticket at all. I want to go and start my own company. I've been working for my boss for 5 years, right? There comes a point where you know that you want to be able to do something on your own. And there's a lot of guys that might be governed by their bosses, or they're worried because they haven't got a ticket that now it's going to be a little bit harder for them to go out. If they stop working for him, they then need to go in, do studies. And that idea is a nightmare. So what is RPL? RPL is the ability for that chippy to come to an organization, a training organization, document all of his expertise, his skill set, his competency across all of the units, better known as the elements of performance criteria within those units, to be able to demonstrate he knows what the hell is going on inside of his trade, right? So using carpentry material, handling carpentry material, erecting roof trusses, pitching roofs, operating elevated work platform, all of these areas inside of the 34-unit carpentry qualification, for example, needs to be able to show that he can demonstrate each of them, right?
Yep.
There's your core units, non-negotiable. If you can't do those, back to the drawing board. You'll get given the LMS or the enrollment. You do the gap training, right? And you knock that over. Might take you a unit a day, right? So if you sat down and you just did all gap training for the entire court, might take you a couple of months, 2 or 3 months to do the gap training. You'll have some practical assessments as well that you need to be able to do. And you might have some RPL that might get thrown in there within the gap. The element of performance criteria, right, means element is either the plan and prepare stage. In the plan and prepare stage, you will then break it down further into the performance criteria, meaning here's the element, here is the overarching, task that needs to be done. The performance criteria is the exact tasks that you need to be able to perform. That is essentially your criteria to deem you know exactly what to do in an orderly fashion all the way through that particular unit, right? So if, for example, it was a used carpentry material, plan and prepare, you would need to be able to show documents or understanding of what particular tools need to be able to use for said job. Might be a circular saw, might be a hand drill, whatever it might be. You need to be able to know that piece of, that tool itself has been prepared safely. It's safe to handle. It's done all of its recent testings and tagged. All of the areas of that particular tool is the one stage of just that one unit. Then you might move into the second stage, which might be the handling aspect of it. How would you use this tool on said task? All the way through to the cleanup. When this is all said and done, how do you store away your tools? How do you keep them in a compliant way that is safe to do so, with the correct PPE stored and worn, and everything is broken down per unit, right? So when you go across to, say, pitched roofs, okay, how do you plan to prepare the job card that you're about to go on, the plans that you're about to do for that pitched roof, all of the elements of like your PPE, what are you about to wear? If you're sitting in recognition of prior learning and you send 15 to 20 photos of you knocking together a door and putting the architraves on, and an RPL mob gives you a certificate, do not complain about the results that you're going to have in a couple of years when that gets revoked, because an audit comes through and finds that you did the bare minimum, not your fault, the broker or the in-between agent that's sent your file to a non-compliant RTO has given you in order for you to get your RPL done. There is a series of evidence per unit that you need to be able to provide, then broken down further into elements, then broken down further into performance criteria, which you would have experienced. And you would follow the bouncing ball. Okay, I've done this unit, now this unit, now this unit, and it'd be a blend, right? Theoretical, knowledge-based, practical, and everything else in between. So back to your LLNs, your referee statements, your docs. Who are the people that are going to sign off and literally put their head on the saw and say, I know that Chris has the capabilities of X, Y, and Z. And if an assessor needs to call, when he calls your supervisor. Yep. And that guy goes, absolutely, he is competent in that space.
It was a lot more than just taking a few photos.
And that's what you see these days. And like, I am somebody that is so congruent, right, with how we operate. Chris, I got caught up in the same thing. We worked with an RTO. We didn't control any compliance because you're dealing essentially like an MOU. No compliance. You're not dealing with who their trainers and assessors are. The other RTOs that we have that are third parties or MOUs or what have you, seeing the way that they operate, there was always this grey area thinking, why are they doing things? And there are so many ways to skin a cat. We got caught up, and it was the best blessing in disguise ever. Because I could sit here and say, oh, we're the most sought after, and we have all of our ducks in a row. No, like, we had to go through the shit to understand what was required. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially from our clients, seeing that we're working with them now, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of students caught up in cancellations. We are I think we had a couple of hundred that were caught up. There are 220,000 about to be cancelled by a big mob in Melbourne, which hasn't hit the news. It's industry talk now that we're understanding. There's another 60,000 from another RTO that's in Sydney. And since then, there's been about 47,000 qualifications cancelled to date already, right? The RPL industry has lost about 85% of its cowboys. That's the blessing in disguise.
Yeah. So there's no shortcuts.
Not any.
There might have been.
There was an absolute window where if you wanted to be morally and ethically unaligned to what was required, you could have got through that window, okay, and taken all the shortcuts, made your money, however it was that you wanted to be able to operate, right, in a way that was non-compliant, and your window of luck has now ended. And good luck to you if you want it. But there is a clear understanding at why 85% of the people that took those shortcuts are no longer present.
Yeah.
And good on them, because they fucking can go somewhere else and they can ruin another industry, or they can look in the mirror and see that the individuals that are affected, because what happens is when you drop a rock in a pond, right, it's not where the rock hits, it's where the ripple ends. When the ripple ends, who is it? It's a homeowner.
That's right. Which is why we've had, I'm not saying it's probably contributed to it, but I mean, there has been a lot of defective buildings as well, right?
Absolutely.
And some of these particular tradespeople could have been working on them. You wouldn't know.
And it's like, okay, how many times you see it online where you have a current affair, you've got a couple that's sitting in front of their, what has been, deemed a lockup stage. Their entire driveway has not been poured. Their builder's gone under. He's doing project homes. They're sitting there. They forked out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the non-compliant builder that got his tickets, I'd be confident in saying under the table, right, or through a shoddy way of recognition of prior learning or some kind of RTO pathway that has gone through. The ripple has ended with that family that's probably got young children. They are, probably saved up deposits for 10 years, 15 years, and the ripple has ended with them. Not the individual behind the computer 2 years prior doing the qualifications for the builder or the contractor. It's ended there. Or the properties that are in a state of knockdown because they went up and they have to come back down, right?
Non-compliant.
So it's
who is RPLs? What is the idea? What is the person that the RPL is designed for, and who is it not designed for?
Good question. When we do an eligibility call, right, call it like an eligibility screening, we'll probably knock back 20 or 30% of clients that come through and they go, look, I've been on the tools for about 12 months, a year, 2 years, and my experience across the gyprocking or the concreting or the carpentry side is just, mate, I know everything. I run all the jobs for my boss. And you hear it, it's like, oh, okay. The moment you start to get into all of the training package and understanding every single unit, do you then start to hear crickets, right? If you've got somebody that comes in, and I say this with a significant amount of confidence, there is no one, right? Nobody right now, bar maybe, God, there might be 0.5% in this country, that would be able to walk through RPL with a 100% capacity. Nobody in this entire fucking industry has the capabilities to walk through RPL 100% of the way through. There are going to be gaps. It's like talking to an entrepreneur and saying, do you know every single aspect of business?
Because things change.
If you look at the building codes, right, they're a big part of the qualifications across every single trade.
Yes.
Ask somebody to recite one of the building codes that they should know. You can't just RPL that, or the Australian standards, which we all know, holds the most weight. Ask somebody from the capacity of the element of performance when it comes down to the building codes or the Australian standard to be able to put forward what is required for competency, they won't know. Therefore, there's a gap. Therefore, gap training is required, not RPL. So when you have individuals that come through, oh mate, I shouldn't be doing any gap training. Okay, but you need to understand the what, which awesome you can provide, but it is complementary to the why now. Your knowledge basis, your challenge questions of such. So if I come to you and go, all right, show me how to pitch a roof, or read your, let's say applying building codes to a class 2 or class 9 building, right? And you go through and you know how to understand it, you know all the acronyms that are on plans or specs, and I go, awesome, okay, but why is that the case? If you can't tell me why from a knowledge perspective, you are not deemed RPL ready or competent. Mm-hmm. So that gap, okay, which we uncover through challenge questions, determines whether or not gap training is required.
So before they sign up, they have to go through a
assessment,
process.
Always. Because it's case by case. You might have a 19-year-old knows more than a 40-year-old, right? Because he might have had more on-site experience doing a specific unit that old mate hasn't done. But then you flip the switch, the 19-year-old has no understanding about half the stuff that the 40-year-old has, but they're complementing each other with different skill sets, right? So his skill assessment that he does to determine his gaps will be very different to the 19-year-old that might have been on the tool since he was 15 with his old man. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying the 19-year-old is not, as qualified or is more qualified than him. They're just going to have areas that overlap, okay, or that he's incredibly good at and he's not so good at, mm-hmm. right? And you need to determine that. It's not, you can't just throw a Cert 3 at somebody and say, all right, show us RPL for all of this. No, impossible. Right? You'll uncover that through a skills assessment. So skills assessments, gap analysis, self-assessment, you name it. There's plenty of different names that are out there, but it's essentially you demonstrating, I do this task often, or I need some training in it. And you'll tick the boxes. You go through the entire qualification and you'll come out with what looks like your own roadmap. So, and that's how it should be. There's no provide us this, and if you fall short, just, all right, next job, go out there and, knock together.
Just take a few more photos on the next job, right?
I could be a Sparky tomorrow. If I need to be a carpenter, you can put me in front of a piece of 4x4. Tell me how to look and what to wear and which piece of material I should be cutting from and what handsaw. I could be a carpenter tomorrow. So it's it needs to be done the right way.
So if it's structured properly, it's an assessed pathway.
Exactly. It's like skills recognition, mm-hmm. right? So let's recognize the skills that you've got. But the aspect, when you look at training.gov, it has performance elements like your performance criteria and your knowledge criteria. They're not like, one's not like let me opt in. Which one do I want? Do I want to do? No, you have to do both. If you're going to put forward your RPL, all right, here's your video proof of you demonstrating a task, mm-hmm. and you've knocked over the elements. Okay, now here's your challenge questions to determine that you actually understand the why behind it. So there are probably a lot of RTOs out there that I say there probably are because I know that they're knocking together these pathways that you just know that the commissioner or ASQA will come knocking and it will be their last day of registration. And they cannot complain about the results that they have today for the shit that they didn't do yesterday. And I would have been that same person if I stayed naive and I didn't want to be in this industry for the next 20 years. That would have been me, right?
It's not just you can pay for a certificate.
No, and in the old days, that used to be the objection.
Yes.
It's like, mate, old mate in Granville told me I could, my builder's license was 20 grand and I didn't have to.
Came from rice bubble packet, yeah? Cereal box.
Yeah, exactly. You shake it before you pay. Yeah, unbelievable. But it's come a long way in the space of the last 6 months from the new standards.
So let's talk about glazing industry in particular.
Yeah.
Or for me, it's a glazing industry, but more so qualification.
Yeah.
For instance, what's the benefit for somebody who's been on the tools for quite some time to then go out and go and pay for the RPL and get the certification that they should really have? What do they stand to gain from being certified?
I mean, there is a ton of reciprocity or rapport questions that our team will ask students when they get on the phone or potential students. And it comes from a place for us to determine whether or not the sale even needs to take place. right? Or the enrollment needs to even take place. When we sit down and we genuinely ask students, right? And, you know, hang me by the sword for this, right? Or hang me by this outcome. There are a lot of tradesmen that come to us, right? And they are like, they're taking on those mediocre jobs. That might be $5,000 a pop or less. And mates of theirs have gone through, got their Cert 3 in carpentry, got their Cert 3 in waterproofing, got their Cert 3 in glass and glazing, and they have kind of got a bit of FOMO. Oh, my mate's got, he's now a qualified glazer. Potentially he has more skills than him.
Yep.
But the funny saying of, mate, I've got the qualification, now I'm just chasing the skills, is what we used to give cowboys. Because it's like, how'd you get it?
Yeah.
It's, RPL. Okay, awesome.
I was seeing lesser, you didn't go to TAFE and do a trade, so you're not as good as me.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of guys can't stomach that. So it's like, okay, well, shit, I've been on the tools for 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, whatever it might be. And some of them want it from a credibility perspective, right? Because a lot of the time, having the conversation with a homeowner or a client or a developer or whoever it is that is the person that is the gatekeeper between you winning the job and losing the job is more aware, and this is by the licensing bodies doing a great job of making sure that you go out there and inspect who is the person that is going to walk into your premise and partake in the work. Ask basic fundamental questions and prerequisites. What is your license? Do you have home warranty insurance, or HPC it is now? Do you have all the necessary public liability? All these questions that they are making sure homeowners, mums and pops, commercial owner, whoever it might be, are required to ask, right? Or ensuring that they do ask for their own peace of mind. Because Fair Trading's role in New South Wales is to ensure that they get less individuals calling through to say, I've got this problem in my life now with this person or this contractor. So they're limiting, this is what you should do. So when you go online, you can see ways in which you can engage a contractor, for example. Holding a license on its own is credibility, or enough credibility, or enough social proof to squash that one question, right? Second thing is your ability to just simply grow your company. Like if you're going to be somebody that, let's say you want to be your nominated supervisor on site, you get your individual contractor license and then you go and apply for your corporation license or your company license, and you want to be able to have a nominated approach where other people that can work with you or directors that can work with you have the ability to then go and preach, 1, 2, 3 carpentry PTY Ltd, because there's one nominated license that is sitting there, and now you have your spokes individuals that are going and winning work on behalf of the company. None of that can happen at all. You won't even look at getting to that stage if you haven't got a qualification or the license.
So you can't get a fair trading license without a trade certificate.
Yeah, exactly. Prerequisites are being that in some states like Victoria, right? If you go to the VBA, now rebranded, if you go into somewhere like the VBA, you have an opportunity to, with some qualifications, demonstrate your knowledge around what is required to be given a qualification through a series of planning tests, multiple choice, and a interview, right? And if you've got what it takes and you understand what questions are going to be thrown at you from the building codes or from each volume, you have a chance to walk through and get your license or your registration in Victoria without having a qualification at all, right? They're one of the only states that have that.
Yeah.
But knowing that a qualification across every other state is your prerequisite is essential for you to know what it takes to get it. Is it going to be, and I don't say commercially viable because you do one job, it pays back your enrollment and your qualification, but whether or not it is even beneficial for you. If you see your company growing to the level that's required, you might get a one-man job, a one-man band. I often will say to those individuals or the team, you'll hear it, just almost not sell to them or try and get them to not buy or not enroll, because it's like, you're getting away with it now because you're under the threshold. How many jobs have you lost? 1 or 2 a year? That could have been 10, 15. Are you chasing them? Oh man, I'm quite content doing my 2.5 grand invoicing, my 3. And if they're genuinely somebody that isn't going in there and splitting up invoices, saying that this day they worked on this and they came back and they were then secondly engaged by the same individual or the same resident. And then they did the second quote. And like, if you want to play that game and you want to like to get around you not spending 5, 6, 7 grand on a qualification, like we'll comfortably tell you that, you know, the one day the door is going to get knocked. And when you do, don't complain.
It's too late.
It's too late because you're not going to try and chase up or backdate what was required for you to be able to do in 12 months ago. So it's for those guys, social proof, right? Company credibility, the ability to grow your business, your brand, the ability for you to take on apprentices because that apprentice needs to be able to have somebody that's a nominated supervisor that's qualified.
That's correct.
Like all of these things that are seemingly like no-brainers, some people still like they question, or there's buyer's resistance around forking out a few grand. And if that's the case, like even for us, like we need to understand that contractors are sometimes awaiting builders. Builders are sometimes awaiting developers. So we need to support that flexibility. Mm-hmm. It's not just mate, here's $5,000 for your enrollment. You need to be wary of every single person's stage within the cash flow process. And if we can aid that or support it or finance it or what have you, then we'll do so. It's not we understand exactly what it might be like when somebody tells, mate, I'm waiting on the builder. We've been waiting 2.5, 3 weeks. I don't want us to be a roadblock that's going to now financially set somebody back for the next couple of weeks because they needed to enroll in order to get a qualification, in order to grow their business. You don't want to be that financial burden for someone. So supporting them with what it would look like as well is critical. But
and how long does it take to get a RPL in a trade?
How long is a piece of string? We will move, especially the assessor.
Right. Say, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. I've been doing this 20 years.
Yeah.
That's my qualification.
Somebody doing it 20 years, and this is playing devil's advocate.
Probably needs the most training.
No, they need the most support.
Okay.
Because they are so used to putting something on the back burner.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody that has been building experience for a few years for a company, they will move through RPL so quickly. Right? And you'll give them the bouncing ball. This is where you start. Your intro to RPL. What is it? Sign that off. Declaration. You understand everything that is required. Your ability to walk through. What are the units? What does the evidence look like? What is the performance criteria? All of these areas, somebody will follow that bouncing ball that has been doing it for a few years and kicking themselves, waiting to get out there and build their own company. Then old mate Steve, that's been on the tools for 20 years, that will constantly try and unsell himself to getting a license because I've been making it work for 20 years now.
I'm okay.
So in stages, they keep falling back into, I need to get it done. Oh, fuck. It lasted 20 years. Another few months won't hurt me. And you play volleyball with them back and forth. It's like, Steve, mate, like you engage us for a reason, right? Or you started this process with the RTO for a reason. An RTO doesn't have, you might set 2-year, enrollment periods for someone. You might set 12 months just to kind of get them to speed it up. And then you might set criteria around if you spend more than 12 months, it's $100 extra a unit or $50 extra a month or what have you, right? To try and incentivize them to speed it up. But, you can see guys move through the element of performance, their performance criteria and their knowledge criteria within 6 weeks, right? A course might set you 4 to 6 months with a gap, right? If you're like 50% RPL, 50% blended, you might spend about 4 to 6 months while still operating your day-to-day, not losing time during the day, not losing hours on site, and you just knock it off in the back end. You can spend 4 to 6 months, and if it's not really a rush, if you needed to get it done within a 6-week process or a 4-week process, the capabilities are there. We just have to move as fast as you move, right? And that's generally always the case. Because when it's your bread and butter, we'll always move as fast as them. But it's unlikely you'll get somebody that will move that fast. So they need to be able, it's tailored. I've got guys that have started 12 months ago. You'll offer to go to their site and be almost like a portfolio assistant. But they'll always find a reason to not make it work. And these guys, they've paid in full and their money is not their problem. It's just maybe their operations in the back end is a huge problem. And the idea of trying to set up and organize photos and videos and document all of that. That's why we operated the full suite, not just like, oh, we'll answer the phone when you call us. We're a very proactive bunch. And it's not even to sell ourselves. It's just easy with technology now.
It is. But to do the RPL, people stand to benefit quite a lot once they complete it.
Oh, mate.
And I know for myself, there was a lot of projects that I couldn't do without my trade certificate. I mean, I couldn't even have a fair trading license.
Yeah.
But now, because I do have that certificate, the trade certificate, I'm able to operate in both New South Wales and Queensland.
But what about the confidence? A lot of people don't talk about that.
Look, I think I can talk from the side that when you were just mentioning some people are slow, they don't have time. It also takes effort.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right, and a lot of people want the gratification of getting the certificate, but they don't want to put the hard work in.
Yeah.
And I feel that it does at the start. It does sort of put you off a little bit. That hey, you got to go back to school and you've got to get this work done.
Yeah.
But when you sit down and you think about it, it's actually not that hard.
Yeah.
All you need to do is be able to describe the work that you do competently that suits the modules in your test.
It's your bread and butter as well. Like it's the jargon is so familiar for you.
Yeah.
Like when you're breaking down the elements within the glazing space, you'll quite quickly know if you're not up to speed with something, right? And the ones that move through it fast are the ones that put pride on the side and humility on the side, which like, let's look at it. We're in the trade space. Mm-hmm. The trade space has got a lot of brutal, like hard yakka individuals.
Yep.
That what they say goes, and they are the best thing in their trade since sliced bread. And to try and get across that when you're trying to potentially present a couple of gaps to one of those individuals can be difficult, right? But the quicker you can put humility on the side and understand that you are not as, how can you say, better off, to have a bit of friction there with you thinking that you're better off in certain aspects or not, instead of just doing the bloody unit. It might take you an extra couple of hours. Do the unit. If one area was repetitive, I can assure you it's better for you to just put the units to bed, mark it off, learn a little bit about the area in which you've just been deemed, slightly, the term incompetent is such a direct word, right? Like where you might have uncovered a small gap in the knowledge basis or the why factor, right? You might have done something because that's the way it's been done for the last 20 years, but maybe why wasn't as clear, but it was just the way that you put two and two together. Here's end output, but why? Oh, interesting. You might enjoy it. The actual why behind it or the knowledge around it might be something that you go, okay, I enjoy. And one thing that I've learned with a lot of individuals, once there is an element of learning, as humans, we thrive on, like being in a position to learn new things. And when we learn something, it's almost like it's an instant gratification. It's like I've just come out better off than I was an hour ago before I looked at this resource or this article or what have you that's aided this, this correct answer that I've just put into, the LMS or what have you, being it's a learning management system, which you've done plenty of. And sometimes when they actually just go through and they do it, they might do a unit online. So in their own time, right? Log in at your own time on your own computer, on your own iPhone, whatever it might be. It's almost like a little bit of a benefit. Mm-hmm. And they'll enjoy the aspect of learning something new.
Yeah, so talk to us about a horror story that somebody's come in and seen you and was desperate to now get their RPL where probably they should have went and got it before.
Okay. They should have got it before?
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of people in trade industries that are working unqualified, right? They might have been doing it for 20 years. Yeah. Their dad taught them how to do the job. They've never actually gone and down the path to go and get an RPL when they probably should. Yeah. And before you were talking about operating with split invoices, and to be honest, I didn't even know that took place. Yeah. I never have never thought to, maybe if I send an invoice for one and send an invoice for another, then I'm under the cap because I just went out and got my certificate. Yeah. Because that's the right thing to do if you want to operate.
Well, I'll tread very carefully here because we've had, within this, we obviously have a ton of individuals come to us, right? I think there's probably, a few thousand, connections that we have every year, and probably growing by 20% a year. Some get us to sign NDAs because they've never given information about how they're operating their companies. And we've got class 2 builders that come to us that are doing 400 odd units that have never seen the inside of a training organization. And we've got guys that are running, $250 million worth of work, and the nominated supervisor is from a different state. They've never met. They've only met over coffee. They pay him 30% of the job, or the margin that they agree on. We get guys that have split up $150,000 to $200,000 invoice, close to 50 times to stay under the threshold.
Wow.
And that just rotates constantly. We've got, kitchen, bathroom and laundry renovators that have project homes running, to the value of $100 million across multiple states and have no license in any of those states at all. Or they have somebody that, the term that we use was license renting, where they'll just rent their license for the job. And that the person that has the license runs a huge risk as well, because if they're complacent and something goes wrong over the next 7 years or 10 years, that person imagine it's a $50,000 job and you got 10 grand to run the job. The guy wants to make the 40. He goes to old mate, pays him his 10, uses the license. This guy's just seeing the 10 grand that landed yesterday. And he goes, there's no thought of anything else. But in 3 years' time, let's say the waterproofing fails, right? Waterproofing fails and all of a sudden there's structural damage. And now that's 4 years later. Mm-hmm. And he comes in, the 40 grand that he made, he's now lost 300. Old mate's now, they've followed the bouncing ball backwards.
He's now on the
hook. Okay, where is it? He's the one that was associated to the job. Nothing to do with old mate that was, he was a hidden figure to it. The client knows who the guy was, but the client thinks old mate that had this license is the same person or the same company.
Yeah.
Right? So two people fall, client's fallen, everybody has now lost in the situation, right? Client comes, where's the home warranty insurance? Maybe old mate did have home warranty insurance that he leveraged for it. Middleman has paid that home warranty fee for whatever the job size was. It might have been $1,500. He's now got to mark against his insurance. Homeowner's got a shit fight that he's dealing with, because time is the issue there, and repairs and maybe moving out and all the logistical nightmares he has to deal with. He's marked, his license is up for scrutiny because they might have a civil case now or domestic because shit's got, it just, like, how many corners of problems there are, and it is never, ever, ever you in your eyes. You never, ever think it's coming. Right? The example that I was giving you before we started this podcast. People come to us, they receive a $5,000 option for enrollment for a cert 4 in building construction, which in your first job you make back, let's say, tenfold, right? To do something like that, which covers you for low rise, all of New South Wales, fair trading, kitchen, bathroom, or building aspects.
Talk about the cost of that $5,000, but that's virtually like a key, right?
It's exactly what it is. Opens the next door.
Unlocks a door for unlimited ability to earn. Correct?
And for, fortunately for us, we're not in a position where we're, student scarce. Mm-hmm. We're not in a scarcity approach. So if an objection comes over to some of our sales team, right, or we call them our student education partners, when you hear that, you feel sorry for it. You try and give them a little bit of insight, but at the same time, you can't, you can take a horse to water.
Of course.
And too often than not, now we've started to give them a little bit of insight. We've had some agreements with some of not the team members, the clients that have gone through the ringer, right? That have actually started with us, not gone ahead, got a fine, then come back. And we've said, can we use this as a case study? Because far too often we see this. And the case studies could be either you're an individual contractor license, your fines look anywhere between, say, 10 and 13 grand, right, from fair trading. I'll give New South Wales examples because they're the most front of mind. Operate as a corporation or as a company, right, and go out there over your threshold and your fines are up to 110,000 per infringement, right? If you got multiple jobs running, they can hit you if they want it. They can go to town and you're under, right, within one decision.
Mm-hmm.
Take that over to NCAT and try and fight it and all that. But that on its own is a nightmare. But let's say, for example, you're an individual that has not gone through that process and now the fines are there. A $5,000 decision.
For a $110,000 fine.
And we've got, that's one of those horror stories where, I'll call him Mr. A for the sake of it. But Mr. A has called us last week. Adam, I don't know what you can do. Talks of, can you backdate? Can you organize a proof of enrollment, which is like a POE, proof of enrollment, or confirmation of enrollment, COE? Can you, so we can argue our case back? It's like, Mr. A, we're so far beyond this as a any kind of like viable solution. And now I have a lot more remorse when I'm having those conversations, but for the sake of this example, it's like the same thing that I would have said to him 3 years ago when he first approached us. And now because inflation, right? Trainer fees have gone up, education enrollment, everything has gone up. So when he first engaged with us, it might have been 4.5 at that stage. So when you look at the cost of inaction of what it's caused him, forget about the 110. Let's say, for example, tomorrow, Chris, I hit you with a 110 grand fine. The 110 grand is nothing. You now cease trading. If you're trading at 50 to 100 grand a week, let's say in revenue, like this gentleman is, which because I'm aware of his operations, that now stops completely, right? You're under the watch. You're being audited for every single, piece of work that you're doing. You've obviously been under the radar for quite a long period of time now, and fair trading is now watching you and has done. And every single thing that is attached to you and your movements is now watched. Mm-hmm. So yes, you can go and bring the company back under your sister's name or your auntie's name or what have you, like we see so many times. Can you just enroll my sister or my wife? And it's like, mate, like, I didn't realize that this conversation was so like few and far between. You have no understanding of what is about to happen. This is not can you give me the next cereal box I can put my hand into. If you're going to do it right the first time, it's like always, measure twice, right?
That's right.
Fucking do it once, the right way. Instead of you spending 4 weeks and trying to cut corners, spend 2 months or 3 months for a license you're going to hold for 20 or 30 years and not run the risk of then 2 years later now you're sitting in a position, right, which Trade Certify was caught up in, right, which is being remediated as we speak because we weren't aware of what other RTOs were doing. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is where partners, like, especially when you engage with, this is where your how can you say, your moral and ethical code shows. Mm-hmm. How do people act in times of challenge and when things are tough? Do they rectify their situations? Do they look to provide solutions? Do they jump on in the bus with you and navigate to exactly what is where is required to go and what is required to do in order to you to be able facilitate the outcome that you need? And within this space, a lot of people are so close-minded or short-sighted to what is required because they might have a $20,000 or $30,000 job on the horizon, and they're not thinking that that's going to take place tenfold, right, as they start to grow. That $20,000 job becomes a $200,000 job in 2 years' time. Effort compounds.
Yes.
Your reputation compounds. If you do it the right way, that grows substantially. You do it the wrong way, that declines substantially.
Yep.
Right? And the moment one officer comes in and just decides that he wants to approach you with some kind of infringement, that is a day that every single fucking domino starts to fall. And when the chips start to fall, oh mate, it's not just the infringement. It's everything in between. It's the assets that are holding up towards any kind of potential insurances that you were having in case things did go wrong. It's the staff that leave and then seek compensation for working under a company that is not operating in the requirements, the safe requirements that are required, and not holding any policies or procedures or what have you. So there is a very, very ugly side to that. And then what happens? You get pulled off all your jobs.
Yeah.
What if you've got?
It's not just $110,000 fine you got coming. Now you got no work.
So and builders still need you to pay. Then the ripple is so substantial, and people look at the initial invoice or the initial enrollment or the initial step that they have to take. And if you can just educate that gap, that friction point that they might have, and give them a view of what it looks like from a positive world, right? This is one side of the rainbow. This is the other side of the rainbow. It could be so much easier.
Talk to us about a success story that you've had come through.
Oh, shit, yeah. Okay, I have had... So, for example, on the way to work, right, I used to have our office in Camperdown. We had an individual, and he was a great bloke, right? And for the sake of it, I'll call him Brad, because his name was Brad. But no, I won't give too many details on him, because I remember when we wanted a testimonial, and there's two kinds of brands, right? The two kinds of people and how they look at their brands. The ones that really sit behind the curtain, and he's one of those guys. Like, his work speaks for itself, and he's got a great reputation, but he doesn't like to show anyone anything. Mm-hmm. But he kept wanting to really when you look at landscaping, right? He was a Cert 3 landscaping student. When you look at the landscaping and what he was able to provide, he could never take it to the big leagues ever, right? On the way to work from like the Belmore area, I used to go all the way through. I'd go Princess Highway and I'd go down to Camperdown. I used to do that route maybe once or twice a fortnight for one reason. When Brad got his Cert 3 in landscaping construction, he won a tender with a major council. That tender with a major council meant that he did all of the parklands for an entire new development that was happening within Walleye Creek. Every single time I drove on Princess Highway, I looked to the right, and the Cert 3 in landscaping construction for Brad meant that everything that I was looking at within like a 2 kilometre radius was done. But we were just a portion of him winning the tender, taking on the work, and growing to what is now, I'd say, close to maybe $50 to $100 million worth of work that he does a year, right? And for context, he might have been operating about 1.5 to 2 million in revenue. That one little piece of feedback, because it's one thing to know that people are doing well, like you see on their Instagram or their Facebook, and you see that they're doing really well. But to have a physical or a tangible, like success story that you can look at. My son goes to the park. My wife is there every second or third day, because we don't live far. And it's such a full circle moment, because you played a role in one, there was one chip that allowed for, such a outcome. I also have a lot of friends and family that have gone on and built incredible businesses off the back of a qualification that has meant that they can get a license, and then they can employ staff, and now they have the ability to get off the tools, and now they coach or they mentor their own team, and now they get to holiday and they get to be away from the business without it falling over, and they're not getting calls at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. They're almost like moving out of their company, because they have the ability to be a supervisor and supervise what is required. Other success stories, what have we had? We've got Class 2 builders that are doing 400 units, 500 units. We have builders that are subbing to the likes of Meriton, Multiplex, Metricon, John Hutchies, because they now can.
Yeah.
And millions of revenue comes from the back of having those contracts now with them. And the prerequisite to those contracts are qualified contractors, and knowing that they can have a credible company that is licensed and has the insurance. So there is so much more. Like, the ripple never ends, right? And even a really good one, my old man. Right, my old man was a qualified sparky.
Yeah.
And he was so good on the tools when it came to carpentry. and he never had the capabilities of being a carpenter. He had tobacconists when he let go of the electrical trade.
Yep.
And I walked my dad through over a few months the carpentry journey, right? Recognizing experience, gap training, the knowledge side, the performance side, that on its own. And now my old man he sold one of his tobacconists, and he works probably 4 or 5 days a week doing what he loves, which is he's not a carpenter at all, but he does, a couple of structural pieces of work. It's he's almost like we call him like a luxury handyman.
Yep.
He just he's in his element completely, and he's out of his stores now.
Yes.
Right. And he's got clients from every corner, from Mossman to Vaucluse to, the areas around Sydney that, like, he never, ever, ever could have believed that he would be back in that world, that tradie world of such. And he gets to see direct impact off the back of what he's doing, and he's leveraging his skills that he essentially kept on a shelf for 15 to 20 years since he gave up the trade in the electrical industry. And like seeing what he's doing now with his company, it's until I just talk about it now, that's my biggest probably success story. Like seeing how, recognition of prior learning and even the gaps that were associated for his scenario have helped him do, what he's doing now. So it's there's so many elements that I love to it.
It's amazing. So we've talked about the benefits of RPL. We've talked about some horror stories, some success stories.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about the actual process.
Yeah.
So for those out there that don't know how to get involved in getting an RPL or what are the steps they need to take, from your recommendation and obviously your knowledge and experience, where do I go? What do I do?
I would, if I'm the tradesman and I have no understanding about RPL, I would firstly look to understand what my process would look like, right? Identify all of my gaps that I might have, that I might be a little bit naive to having, right? Because a lot of carpenters or glazers might do balustrades or pool fences.
Yes, or shower screens.
And it's like, oh, I'm a glazer.
Yep.
You're not, mate.
Yeah.
There's so many other elements to the trade.
Yes.
And it's almost like an insult to the trade. You put a couple of pool fences in and you try and do RPL for a cert through. It's not that you don't have the skill set to have the transferable skill set to the other units, but it's not, the just said and done because you have an area that you work with the overarching material in that trade. That's not what it is. But if a gap is going to be able to give you an indication of how far or how long the journey might be, it's going to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what it might look like for you.
Yeah.
So let's say they do a bit of a skills assessment. It's going to open up their understanding of probably other areas and other elements to the trade that they might not have touched on yet. Because if they're just used to doing, either forming up a home or, they do resi builds or duplexes or what have you, they might not touch certain areas, right? And for example, pitch roofs, it's not a very common, element to see on a home these days. You see a lot of the new builds that are going out. Pitch roofing is not necessarily one of them. So 90% of trades in the carpentry space would come to us and be like, no, I don't do that. A lot of the glazers that come to us, they just do pool fencing, shower screens, and there are a ton of other elements that they need to be able to leverage or do practical at a site, that would be relatively similar to yours, where they can learn a bunch of understanding around, materials and information that would be available in a simulated environment. So firstly, stage one, identify exactly your understanding in the space. Where are your gaps? Where are your RPL pathways that you're going to be able to move through, and see what that looks like. Secondly, see who is in your immediate radius that could potentially serve as a gap if needed, right? When I say gap, a practical gap. Mm-hmm. If there was a workshop that you could walk into, right, and there was a unit, like if you were doing trusses and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to be doing X, Y, and Z for the next, couple of months, or I've got no jobs lined up. Is there a facility or a simulated workshop that you can walk straight into, and you could pay them to do, a unit there over a couple of days?
Yeah.
Right? It might be $1,000 and they just knock over a unit. That's always a good option, right? Number 3, you want to make sure that the RTO that you're going to be working with has a significantly competent trainer. If a trainer or an assessor is just there for the sake of it, right, and they have their Cert 4 in TAE and they have their carpentry package, their glazing package, their Cert 4 in building, their diploma in building, and they're up to speed and they're up to scratch and they hold the qualifications, but they are lousy as shit, then that's going to be reflected in your performance when it comes to that particular unit or that upskill or that training that you're going to be able to have. So make sure that the person that you're about to do the work with, you have an opportunity to have a conversation with, right? Who is the trainer? What's the credibility? What's his background? Like, what is he? Is he still on the tools, or was he on the tools 15 years ago? It's very different now.
Yes.
Right? The techniques and what happens on site, the materials, for God's sake. So
standards change.
Oh, exactly.
Everything changes.
So understand that. 4th, understand what it actually means to be able to put forward evidence for the unit. Because if somebody reads out using carpentry, material, or handling carpentry material or using carpentry tools and equipment, that sounds so black and white. But what exactly do you have to provide for that particular unit? So if it's, let's say it's, site sketches and drawings, right? And it's RPL. Oh, I'm always sketching up. When the slab goes down, I sketch up. But okay, show me that you know genuinely how to sketch the concept that's about to come to life. Show me that you know how to do a specific amount of sketches that are based on the unit or the legislation that's required to the standards or to the code that you need to be able to put forward, right? If somebody doesn't even know the understanding of what is required for them to put evidence, that smacks them in the face when they enroll. Because it's like, okay, what I need you to do is X, Y, and Z. It's like, mate, you didn't say that we needed to do that. What you said was 1, 2, and 3, or you made it seem like it was just 1. So really understand what it looks like, because then it makes it so much easier, because you'll feel better doing it when you understand what's required. Sometimes it's just a kick in the guts. You feel like, oh, I've been swindled here. This is not what I signed up for. So understand what is required, because you might say you're RP already, but really you're not. You have an understanding of the concept, but you don't understand how to actually put that tangible into a portfolio and demonstrate it, right? So really understanding what it looks like from that perspective, and go with somebody that has a strong LMS, right? An RTO that really, really has a self-paced, platform that you can just jump into after work. You might knock off the tools early, 1 or 2 o'clock, and you want to be able to have the flexibility to do what is required and not be governed by the software or the platform that the RTO is providing you. Or it might be Zoom classes that are only ever so often, and that's going to clash with when you're doing X new job or signing off this. So work with somebody that has the capabilities, right? Like our trainer, my trainer will tell me, oh mate, I just spoke to Jeremy, Daniel, Jesse last night at 9:30. It's like, fucking hell, Damien, good on you. Oh no, that's all right, mate. The old mate's in WA, Daniel's in Queensland. I want to make sure that I'm available for him, and that is priceless, because it's a tradie talking to a tradie within the understanding of the flexibility of what happens on site, and things go wrong, and then family time. You might get off site at 5 o'clock. You're then doing bed, bath, and dinner routine. And if you're going to be strictly allowed a window to be able to deal with somebody, that is not how you want to be able to operate. You want to be able to know that you've got flexibility to do what you want, when you want, and it is controlled around your, capabilities, not the college. Not, oh, you have to come to our campus versus, oh, man, I'll come to site, right? So our trainer will do that. He'll go, my trainer, he is like, I call him Damien on tour. Mate, he is, if he needs to be in Robina tomorrow, he'll jump on a flight. If he needs to be in Broken Hill, he'll jump on a flight. Like he has no, he was in, where was he? In Gosford, then, was it Gosford, then Townsville within the space of 48 hours? He doesn't care. So
choosing the correct organisation that's flexible around your needs is extremely important. Exactly. Before you even go in and sign up anywhere, make sure that you understand the units and what's required from you.
Yeah.
Then understanding the college.
What kind of evidence I need to put forward? Will you work with me, right, to support me in getting it done? Making sure that they understand your schedule, right, your limitations. Because, if let's say you're a dad, right? If you're an old man, and there's no discriminate, like we have a lot of female tradies that we qualify, right? And a lot of them are mums. The first thing we do, we understand exactly what their day-to-day looks like. Because when they come off the tools, they go and do the invisible work, right? Which is being a mum.
Yes.
I can't even comprehend how they manage to get it all done. When we see their portfolios, and sometimes you'll see like a video and image accidentally has slipped through that they've tried to upload that should be mapped back to a unit, but it's them on holiday with their kids, and it sets you back. You're like you underestimate how important it is to be able to really work with the lifestyle of the client, right, or the student in this instance.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to make sure that the person understands what your schedule looks like. Because if there are notes that's going to allow a portfolio manager or a student support or engagement officer to be able to work with you within those boundaries, then you bloody oath want that.
Yes.
You don't want to have to be governed by their schedule. Because it's needless to say it's not going to work, right? Or if you have dads, the moment they get home, they are fucking exhausted, right? They leave before the sun comes up, right? They are, most of the time, they're back home when the sun's down. They got a window of time to be able to work, to be able to, be with their kids, be with their partners. The moment the kids are in bed, bath time's done, dinner's done, everything, they're already exhausted as it is. The last thing you want is them going into something that is going to be, like let's say an after hours, a workshop where they have to go back into a campus, right, between 7 and 9 p.m. Like that is fucking exhausting.
Yep.
If you can take those 2 hours, right, and work that out on their schedule during their time that is flexible to them, and build up any kind of gaps necessary, if there is, then why not do it on their time? It costs us more, but wouldn't that individual be much more better off saying, I'll pay the assessor for the hour, let him come to me.
Yeah.
Versus, let me drive 45 minutes to the nearest campus, if there is, and get this knocked over, within a couple of hours, then get back home, exhausted, get back up early, and the cycle repeats. And that dies out. No wonder why people left their trade in TAFE or their apprenticeship. You can't sustain things that aren't flexible around your schedule.
Yep.
So that's our aim of continuing to build, right? We want to make sure that that's going to be the case for all tradies across the country for us.
And then what's your advice to tradies that do find the right agency for them? They understand what's required in the RPL process and they're willing to do the work. What's your advice to them?
Stick through what might feel like the mundane tasks of documenting it, because the moment you start to see, the breakdown of elements and the performance criteria, you will, if you chunk it down and then chunk it up, let's say you targeted one practical, or one, photo and video, for each element or each performance criteria, and you knocked away a unit a day. For most trades, it's only a month away, right? Really, really lean into exactly what is required from when it talks to you about what a successful piece of evidence looks like. Really lean into the person that's on the other side of the phone that is guiding you through it. Not just a trainer. Really lean into the portfolio manager. Really lean into the student engagement. Like, it's in the title, student engagement. They're designed to keep you engaged, right? And for us, we have a couple of incredible individuals. Candace, Hannah, their whole job is to ensure that you stay above water, right? Stick through the first couple of units. Once that gets done, it's like clockwork. You know exactly what is required. It all makes sense to you. The first stage is the most important, right? And don't be disgruntled if an assessor comes back and goes, look, just a little bit more evidence on this particular unit. You might have experienced it. Like,
I'm not in my head because I know exactly where you're coming from. Because right when you first start, everything's a bit much, and it's like, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. But then you understand, but you don't quite understand exactly what they want from you, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't lucky enough to have a student engagement officer or somebody that I could work with at the time. We're going back quite many years. But then when you start to go through it, it's like, then it clicks. And then it's like it gets easier and easier and easier. But you always have to remind yourself, just stick it through to the end, because I came for one reason, is to get qualified, and I need to finish this.
Yeah. It's a brick in the structure. Like, we tend to give as many construction analogies as we can. Right? Like, it's exciting at the start, right? You take on a new job, but it's bare bones, and you only start to really get those butterflies or the excitement when you start to see, like, the cosmetic touches are coming in, and you're like, fuck, look at the importance of every single brick, or in this instance, every single piece of evidence or every single element that you put forward, and eventually it's making up this entire structure that will then turn into a qualification that you will hold for the rest of your life. And it is literally we look at it, yes, it's a qualification, but it's an accolade that has such big upside, and you probably don't even understand. To most people, it might be a piece of paper until they have it, until they're then licensed.
Until they need to use it.
Until they need to use it, or until they're asked for it. And you don't want the wrong person asking for it. Because if you don't have it, and you're sitting there with your pants down on a site, and you're looking back and thinking, holy fuck, how do I cover this one up? You don't.
Yeah.
Because I can assure you, anybody holding their license is not going to fucking throw theirs under the bus to save yours because you were a contractor unlicensed on any site that they were working next to. And they're all oblivious. Oh, Daniel doesn't have a license. Are you kidding me? He put forward this. Then you're up shit's creek twice. Imagine that. You put forward somebody else's license. He gave me this. John Dickinson's license. What?
His name's not John, it's
Daniel. Daniel, who's John? So there's so many different elements to it. But at the end of the day, it's like you need to be wanting to engage in doing better for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not interested in that, you can only be helped so much. If you want to run the gauntlet, run the fucking gauntlet. God knows that there's another 150,000 guys behind you that are going to run the gauntlet for, to the day that they put the last tool down.
Yeah. Look, Adam, I really appreciate you spending time on the podcast with me today. For those guys out there that have been in the industry for a very long time, I highly recommend you do go get your license. Being trade certified is very important to myself, but also it unlocks many doors, like we've just discussed today. So once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, brother.